Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Went Black podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. Ryan Patterson, my old friend, has come on to talk about his new band, Fotocrime. Ryan and I go back like 2 decades. I met Ryan back in the late 90s. When my old band, Anodyne, was touring, he was the guy who put our first show ever on in Louisville. Or actually, it wasn't our first show ever, but it was the first time we actually played Louisville. Ryan was behind that. So we've been friends for a really long time. And I've been a supporter of all of his musical endeavors. And Fotocrime, I'm no less excited about that. Before we get going, I want to thank Dallas, our newest Patreon subscriber. Thank you very much. And there's actually a nice little group of people forming. And I'll be getting some stuff out to you guys now that we actually have a little group of people together. Some of the benefits will start kicking in. And if you want to support the podcast for as little as $1 a month, you can support Everything Went Black. If you go to everythingwentblackmedia.com, up at the top you'll see a button, Support the Podcast via Patreon. And all the details will be laid out for you there. I mean, there's different benefits, different levels of involvement. It's all laid out on the Patreon website. And also on Facebook, I have the Patreon link pinned to the top of our Facebook page. Just want to give a quick rundown of the affiliate sponsors. As always, we have Onnit. If you're interested in checking out the exercise equipment, or if you're interested in the MCT oil, and both of those things I'm a regular user of. You can go to the website, everythingwentblackmedia.com, and you'll find banners. Click through the banners, put in your order, and I get a tiny little percentage of that. Next up on our list of affiliates is Datsusara. If you're into hemp products, Datsusara is a great company. I've got a bunch of their different things. So, support the cause, buy something made out of hemp, and enjoy. If another way of helping out the podcast is just tell your friends, spread the word. If you enjoy the podcast, let your friends know about it. Always looking for new members. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome to become a listener and enjoy the podcast. Another way you can help out is by leaving a review on iTunes. Star rating, written review, whatever. If you want to get at me, you can email me, mike.hill@everythingwentblackmedia.com. I'm also on Twitter @MikeHillHQ. Facebook, there's an Instagram, Mike_Hill_primate. And, there's a variety of different things I talk about on there. Last but not least, this podcast is brought to you by Savage Gold Coffee. Go to savagegoldcoffee.com, and if you're into coffee, there's all kinds of stuff there that's waiting for you. All right, cool. So I'm real excited to have you on, Ryan. It seems, now that everyone's doing their own thing, it seems like it's harder and harder to get chances to talk. And sometimes you have to organize an interview to actually talk to your friends these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So coincidentally, the 7-inch actually just showed up, like literally today. So it's
great.
Very,
Excellent. Very
timely. And so I'm once again, thanks for sharing the MP3s with me earlier. And so the new band, Fotocrime, it's to me it makes sense because having followed what you were doing in Coliseum and knowing you personally, the step that you're taking with Fotocrime makes a lot of sense. So from the end of Coliseum to now, like, what was that process like?
It was kind of streamlined, but also a little bit like anything. It wasn't exactly a straight line. There were some kind of ups and downs. Coliseum finished our last tour like August of 2015, and we had done all sorts of stuff through that tour where we kind of felt like it was time to try something entirely new, or maybe just put it to rest. So by the end, I think we were like, it was kind of like sign with this manager we'd spoken to who was really cool, but didn't really have the same ideas as us or put the band to rest. So we kind of took a break and thought about it. We had one more show booked that fall, and immediately I started writing music that wouldn't be Coliseum music because I was energized to keep doing something. And initially I kind of had it as a solo record idea, like more of a solo artist vibe than what Fotocrime became. Like really influenced by Mark Lanigan stuff and Sparkle Horse and a lot of things like that, like these kind of like solo people that have a lot of electronic elements. So I was writing a lot of that shit, and then the Coliseum played our what ended up being our last show in November 2015 in Chicago. On that trip, we decided like this is going to be it. And so then I started going back to writing a lot more, but I just couldn't really get out of my head. I was thinking too much about how it would be perceived and where it would sit in the world and, that kind of thing. So it was kind of fucking me up, and I would just have a lot of false starts, and I got a lot of songs written, and then when I started to sing on them, it just wasn't feeling right vocally. It was just kind of like, I really wanted whatever I did next to be really comfortable with my voice, and I was definitely not there yet. So, so there were like many months where I was kind of just working on stuff here and there, but not really getting into it. And then a friend of mine, Will Allard, who was in Whips Chains with me and was in the band Xerxes, he kind of joined up with me, and that was when Fotocrime really started happening, because I had someone to work with, and even though he wasn't bringing material in, it was like there was a scheduled practice, it was kind of regimented, and then I really got into the groove of it, and finally like the sound kind of came together. And Will pretty quickly bowed out because he just, I don't know if he wasn't into it or it was just I was too serious about it. But by that time I was full steam ahead. So for all the rest of last year I was just fucking writing like nonstop. And then at the beginning of this year went to Baltimore to record a bunch of material with Jay Robbins. And then as soon as I got back from that, pressed the 7-inch, found people to play with me, and that was it. The band was there.
So you recorded more material than the 4 songs that are on the 7-inch?
Yeah, so there's I recorded 13 songs
with
Jay, and with the idea of it being a full length and then a first EP. So we picked 3 songs for the 7-inch, and so I have 10 songs, which is an album that's I'm kind of looking for a home for now, kind of working toward that. And the 3 songs on the 7-inch kind of specifically, especially Always Hell, which is, the 7-inch in my mind is very much like classic single with a couple of B-sides. And I dig the B-sides, but it was more about this one song kind of being the focus. And it was picked because it seemed to have the most connective tissue to Coliseum, or at least the later Coliseum material.
Yeah, to me that's what I mean. It's Coliseum was a band for what, over 10 years, I think. You got was that the duration of the band?
12 years, yeah.
Yeah. And throughout that 12-year duration, there's been definitely eras of like, all right, cool, this is what the band's doing this now, then there's like some lineup changes, and then a sort of not like the older material was any more or less developed, but it was like an evolution, meaning that things were changing, and and so this next step of Fotocrime to me the stuff that I've heard so far, the songs on the 7-inch don't seem like that much of a departure, more like maybe a refinement of what you were doing towards the end of Coliseum.
Yeah, in some ways I agree. I don't know that this is what Coliseum would have written, because the inherent sound of a band is just a bit more, a bit bigger. And Coliseum always, even when we were trying to be kind of softer, was always had a kind of a thicker, meatier kind of sound. So, but I think it's along the same vibes of what I was into. You know, I mean, it's the same kind of stuff that I'm influenced by. Mm-hmm. Certainly.
So the recording process, were you by yourself or do you have other people playing on the record?
It's all just me, yeah. So just, yeah.
And sequence drums, or?
Yeah, so it's all programmed and sequence drums. And so I demoed everything at home and then took everything flew to Jay's studio in Baltimore and for a couple weeks. And so all the drum programming was done and all the synth and keys and all that was done. So I used because all that shit's pretty much like direct, recorded. Yeah. So in Jay's studio, we did guitars, bass, some keys, vocals, mixing, and then we would do, some rearranging and some things like that, and then all the mixing. So it was kind of interesting, like to just not, there's no drums, and you're in the studio with this amazing live room, and it was kind of funny because we were pretty much in the control room the whole time. Yeah. So it was kind of wild, like a really different experience.
What did you use for the drum sequencing? Did you have a drum machine or use some of the software that's out there?
I use a software program that's like really, really remedial, and I don't really like. I've tried to program with MIDI, but within the recording software, I never really liked that. So this really, cheap, crappy. I don't know if I want to say crappy, but pretty cheap and basic program that I use, and because I also want to keep things sounding like a drum machine. I'm not trying to replicate human playing or fool anybody. I still want it to have some of that classic drum machine repetitiveness and like inherent, like not drawbacks, but like the things that are kind of inherent to that make it sound a little more rigid. So that's what I tried to go for.
Yeah, with drum machines, the beat's always on. You know what I mean? There isn't like that weird human drift quality that when you're playing with an actual drummer. It's like this very, very like, regimented, always on the beat type of vibe, and and the whole genres of music have developed as a result of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when the live setting, I see, I follow you on Instagram and all that, and I see you guys were out on tour with Russian Circles, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a weekend, but yes,
yeah,
that was great.
A few shows.
Yeah.
So who's performing in the band live?
So live, Nick Thieneman, who's been in Young Widows, and Breathe the Resist. He plays guitar in Fotocrime. And a woman named Shelly Anderson plays bass, and she's in another band here in town called Brenda, kind of like an indie pop garage kind of band. So, Nick's like been my friend forever, and he and I are in another band called Black God, a kind of side project thing. So, Brian from Russian Circles actually wrote me when I was in the studio and said, "Hey, this new thing, you want to come play these shows with us?" So. It was great because it gave me a deadline to say, okay, I've got to be ready by this time. And so Nick was like the first person I asked, just said, "Hey, you want to play bass?" And he said, yes. But then he used to play guitars in bands before doing all these bands with my brother. So he asked to play guitar, and I said that was fine. And Shelly is also a person who is a guitar player initially, but was kind of taken to bass. So she took on the bass because I'd seen her play and thought she was great. So it was really great. I mean, they both just kind of jumped on board and were gung-ho with it. And, it's interesting doing something that is not really a band in the traditional sense, and you're asking people to come and play your stuff and play it more or less exactly as you played it or as you want it. And, I get a little weird, like, I don't really like to tell people what to do, in life. Yeah. So that's like a little bit interesting, but it's been great. Like, they're really on board. I think they're both really stoked on it. So I think initially I envisioned Fotocrime as being more of a fluid lineup, and that's not to say that it won't be, but right now I'm really happy with them and stoked that they're involved.
And still drum machine live, right? No, you didn't actually have a drummer.
Yes. Yeah, drum machine live. I got these two huge powered PA speakers, like 215s and a horn. Got 2 of those because we didn't want to rely on, you know, the sound, whatever the sound may be. You know, if you play a DIY show, you might just have a vocal PA. If you play a club show, you might have monitors. But as we all know, you know, you're lucky if you get monitors to work for your vocals. You know, to try to put like, you know, synth and drums and all this shit through monitors is kind of scary. So we wanted that. We wanted that power on stage, like to really have these 2 monoliths that really kind of shake us on stage. And so yeah, I got those. They're very intimidating. They're like, you know, just big. Like when a piece of gear is like too big for you to move on your own, it's kind of a little overwhelming, but they worked out really well.
Well, you know, you and Evan have always been like, whenever I see any, you know, your bands or Evan's bands, you guys always have a ton of stuff on stage. So I expect no less that you're going to have like these massive cabinets on stage.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to slim down, like with Coliseum, but well, for a long time I was using 3 amps on stage, and you know, dealing with heads and amps separately, heads and cabs separately, and plugging in speaker cables and all this shit. I was like, okay, just ready to use a combo, which I'm doing in Fotocrime, but then I've got a combo and then these 2 fucking PA speakers and a mixer for those and a small synth and you know, the thing I'm using to trigger all the samples and shit. And so it's, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just bound. I'm like, we'll always be stuck with using a bunch of stuff on stage because I don't know. I find it interesting and it's fun, and I like thinking about signal path, you know, in that way. And but yeah, it's funny because I've always been trying to, over the years, get away from that like multiple full stack thing we were doing when we were younger. But it's kind of like you just move from that into something else. There's still a million cables to plug in all the time.
Yeah, totally, man. I actually like kind of leaned down my setup on stage. The last tour we did, I just used half stacks actually. And, yeah, it's kind of cool. Like, you have less stuff to like move around, and you know, it's a little less stressful. You know, being on like a multiple band package, you just kind of move your stuff on and off the stage. It's a little easier. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, just the nature of taking up space in vans and all that stuff. It's fun for sure, but like it ultimately, like you realize it's just the music you're making that counts, and it's not all the crap you're lugging around.
So with the synths, on the recording, are you actually playing analog synths, or is it once again like, you know, more or a combination of software and analog, or, you know? I'm always interested in hearing that.
Okay.
You know, it's always been whenever I hear a synth, I'm like fascinated by like what equipment is actually used to produce that sound. So what do you use on the record?
Yeah, it's all actual synthesizers. There's no software. It's kind of like how I feel about, even though I am using a software for the drums, synths are so tactile because you're moving the knobs, and you know, they're really interesting because they're so different from playing a guitar or something, because there's so many elements and you know, filters and you know, all that shit. So I really don't like messing around with a synth on a computer or you know, phone or whatever, because I don't like to not be able to turn multiple knobs, you know, with my hands and things like that. I hate clicking on a knob and turning it. So yeah, so I've got a handful of things, nothing crazy. I have a Moog Sub 37. I have an Arturia Mini Brute, a kind of like low line Roland generic digital synth. Then I have like an old 90s, I'm spacing on the name right now, but just a big 64 key 90s keyboard that has a lot of kind of antiquated sounds. And then an old Roland module, which is, you plug in a keyboard via MIDI to it, and it has a lot of, it's like maybe late 80s, early 90s, and it also has like a lot of kind of sounds of pads and strings that are kind of typical of the time. So it's, you know, it's nothing like too crazy, but it's I like that. I like pulling those things out and kind of tuning the sound in versus software with that stuff.
Now, do you take all this stuff out on the road, or do you like you mentioned triggering and stuff like that? So how do you manage that stuff on a live setting?
No, I'm just taking the Arturia Mini Brute on tour because it's the smallest. It's an analog synth, and I used it for the last many years of Coliseum. But most of the stuff is with the drum tracks, and all that is being played from a Jam Man stereo pedal, which you can load samples into, and it's seemed to me to be the most solid and basic thing, where it's basically has toggle up and down and then stop and start. I didn't want to have a computer on stage. That's just not really a vibe I'm into generally, and I didn't want to like start and stop the songs with my hands, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
I didn't want like to see my finger fly down and go boom, hit his song. Like I kind of wanted that to be a little more on the ground. So yeah, but it's funny. I mean, we played these 3 shows, and I pulled out the synth, the Arturia, when I got home, and I have a nice case for it and stuff, and a key was broken. I don't know how, just moving around after a show. So, bringing something that's like 3 or 4 times more expensive than that and bigger, I just know it would get broken.
Yeah.
Those things just don't seem to be ready for the road. They won't last. So I'm just not going to bring them out.
Yeah, I used to have one of those Jam Man pads too. I mean, those pedals. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I have there's like an Electro Harmonics has like a similar thing too. There's all kinds of little toys you can use to run, electronics these days. It's pretty cool. I'm reluctant to lug a laptop out on the stage too, but that's how a lot of people do it these days as well. So yeah, just that vibe is different with that screen, and just I follow it completely.
Yeah, like this, it's weird. It's more than anything, it's the light from the screen that turns me off. Like, especially if the stage is dark and the vibe is dark and there's this little screen, it just, I can't handle it. And the last time I saw Wire, actually, 2 of them, Colin Newman and bass player, I'm forgetting his name right now, but both of them had iPads on little stands kind of like next to their microphones, and the last song they kind of did like a noise jam where they just ran their fingers around the iPad, and I just wasn't feeling it. Like, I have no problem with backing tracks or anything that's like synthetic on stage at all, but I still think there needs to be an element of presentation to it and mystery and just something other than just seeing somebody fuck around on their phone. Like, we do that all fucking day, and you see that all day, and the last thing I want to do is come on stage and do that in front of people or watch somebody do that. It just takes me out of the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. I'm like reluctant to embrace that sort of step, you know what I mean? Which is like a lot of people are just taking that as, okay, well, this is just the next phase of what we do on stage, and I'm just like, I'm resisting it, Yeah,
it's not for me.
So playing the songs with like a full band now, when it's time to make another recording, do you think you're gonna have these guys play or someone play on the record, or are you gonna handle it all by yourself again?
I hadn't really decided. I just started writing some more stuff, and I already have, like I said, I already have this album that's finished, but we're going on tour in June and July, and we're having some hard time with a couple dates, and we were kind of near Baltimore, and I texted Jay and said, hey, if we've got this day off, do you have this date open? Can we just come in and do some stuff? And he was like, yeah, I have the date. So I just booked a day to go in and record 2 or 3 songs in the middle of tour, and definitely Nick and Shelly will play on it. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna like say, you guys just hang out while I'm fucking around here. But so I think all that just remains to be seen. I'm trying to not get too ahead of myself with the band. I do think that as of now, everything will be written solely by me. And that's not to insult them, because they're great players and I'm sure they have great ideas that I won't have, but that's just how I want it to be right now. And I think that the vision of what the band is doing is mine, and I'm not really wanting at this point to like take other elements in. You know, it's like I have a thing I'm trying to do, and you know, I'm happy for them to be part of executing that, but I'm still kind of holding on tightly to the creation of the songs, and you know, so but everything else I'm just kind of letting it go and see. I mean, I think that's for a new band. I'm trying to not get really far ahead of myself, and one of the things that kind of wore me out with Coliseum was this constant planning far ahead, and expectations and you know, things that had to happen or that I wanted to happen and all this stuff. Where with this, I'm trying my hardest, especially because it's entirely new and most people don't even know it exists, is to just take it step by step and enjoy each bit of the process and not worry so much about this long-term thing, which happens, as you know, happens when you've been in a band for a fucking long time. You just, every bit of what I ever did in the history of Coliseum was in my mind and on my shoulders at all times. And I'm happy to let that go and just take this as it comes.
Yeah, I could relate to that, man. That's actually the attitude I had when I started doing Tombs too, man. It's like, you know, I'd been in bands before that, and you know, I'm going to say that I was probably disappointed a little bit by some of the things that did not happen with those bands. So when I started a new band, I just wanted to keep this like objectivity about, you know, just kind of do something that I wanted to do, and I'm happy with the music, and just see where it goes. And I think that gave me a lot more, like, you know, sort of peace. And like when you have, and when you don't have expectations, I kind of feel like things tend to happen, you know, pretty quickly.
Right.
It's, you know, it's a positive. It's all positive then. You know, if something good happens, then it's better than, oh yeah, well I didn't really expect anything to happen anyway. So, yeah.
Have you been able to maintain that as the band has
No.
existed for? Okay.
No, because I mean, you know, we've been a band for like 10 years at this point, and or it's actually, it's not even really a band. Comes now that you mention it, it's really just me hacking away by myself, but with various people in and out. But you know, it's I still try to be in this mind space of, I'm just happy that I can go out and make a record and go on the road, and people care enough, you know, and just feel fortunate for that, because, you know, I'm in that phase of my life where a lot of people are just kind of like not doing this anymore, you know, or they're not able to do it anymore. So I just feel happy to be, you know, more or less relevant with what I'm doing. So that's what kind of keeps me like in this sort of, you know, a little bit more of a objective state, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard, you know. I mean, now it's great. This is the best part of the being in a band, I think, is like the beginning, where you're like, you know, it's this new thing. You're really excited. You're very prolific in the, you know, the writing phases, and there are no expectations, you know, and that's awesome, you know. So the 7 inches was self-released. So was that, you know, was there a specific you know, idea behind this decision making, or, you know, what was your mindset on that?
Mainly it was I just didn't have patience to wait for somebody else. You know, you're starting something new, and I don't want to go to the obvious places and ask the same people that have put out my records forever to do stuff. You know, I'm trying to kind of start with a clean slate and with a new perspective. So I didn't want to just follow along in Coliseum's footsteps, or have this be just Coliseum continued, except just me, you know, because that's not what I wanted to do and not what it is. So I didn't ask any of the people that I've worked with before. I asked a few labels that I really like, that put out records that I like, if they wanted to do it. There were people that I don't really know, or just know a little bit, and you know, and none of them were either interested or able or whatever. So really quickly I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm not gonna sit around and wait for approval, and just wanted it to happen. I wanted the band to exist quickly and be tactile quickly, and not go through those steps that you go through usually when you start a band, which is you get some people together, you work on some songs for months, you play some local shows. I didn't want to kind of do that slow ramp up. I just kind of wanted to start at, of course, not like you're not starting at the top of the ladder, but at least start in like a middle rung where I'm kind of like, all right, this is something, it exists, it's here, it's a band, it's fully formed, and bam, I'm starting from here. And so far, all that's worked out. I mean, I wanted someone early on to be involved with me in like the back end, and I found a manager who's like really stoked and awesome, and she's doing a great job, and we have like very similar vision for what we want the band to be. And there's just so much from Coliseum that I learned in terms of like our successes and failures, and the things that became a real struggle for me. And I hope, like you're saying, you hope to avoid those pitfalls if you can. Certainly, it's impossible and you can't control everything, but I just kind of wanted to start with a really clear perspective and with like a solid foundation right from the get-go. And so that's the thing, and then it's just nice. It's nice to put out your own record. To me, every record is an art project. Like, I mean, I've always done something tactile that I worked on myself with records, whether it's designing them or putting in neat things with pre-order packages or whatever, or special little fucking merch trinkets that we liked. And I kind of wanted this to be the same way, like have it be coming directly from me and just get it going quickly. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and also these days it's a lot easier now to get your material out there, like via Bandcamp and all these other platforms. So I mean,
it is, but I feel like those things, at least in my experience, it seems like that's throwing a penny into the ocean. It's so hard. You can get it out there, but I think to get people to care and pay attention, it's still difficult. At least with things I've done.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the most important thing is getting out there in front of people, But,
right.
But if you're going to do it on your own, having that, you go out there and you tour and you play in front of some people, they can at least, it's easier to make it available to them once they know about you, the band.
For sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm under no illusion that, you put something on Bandcamp and without any kind of effort, the cash starts rolling in, because there's multitudes of other people doing the same exact thing that, probably don't really tour, or they have these little bedroom projects that they do and they just put them up on Bandcamp, and there's this glut of just sheer volume of stuff that probably shouldn't be fully realized that's out there, and it's equal to something that's a little bit more serious and developed, and that's like, I guess the downside of this digital explosion of content,
Absolutely.
So this
it's funny.
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
Speaking of that, like when I was looking for a band name, I'd come up with a million names of like references to movies or books that I loved, and I mean, every fucking thing is taken, and you go and you're like, oh, this should be a band name, and you look and it's somebody has a Bandcamp and put 2 songs up 3 years ago, and it looks like no one ever listened to them. They have that name,
Yeah, no, totally.
That to me is really funny. Like it's I don't know. It kind of is like, shouldn't you have some qualifications before you can kind of hoard this bit of creative idea?
Yeah, I think that like it'd be really cool if you weren't active, like you had to like, earn your name and then maintain it. It's like if you were like the welterweight champion or something like that, and you had to constantly defend having your name. That would be kind of an interesting way to do it, Well, you guys haven't toured in like 6 years, so we're going to take that name away from you. Or
right.
You haven't done a record in like, 20 years or whatever, so you can't be called Black Sabbath anymore, That'd be kind of funny.
Well, it's funny because along those lines, there's a band from Brazil, I think, South America somewhere, called Coliseum, spelled the exact same way, and their record is out on like a Polish label, I think. And so we got a couple, you know how people online just tag things, they don't look at what it is, and we got a couple things with Coliseum where we were tagged in this band's shit, and I contacted that label, and I don't think they had the record out yet, and I just said, hey, you know, I see the record's not out yet, and we have this name, we're a band, we've been a band for a long time, we've done shit on labels, you know, like, this is us.
Yeah.
And you know, this isn't cool, like, would you guys figure out some plan B? And the label was just kind of like, you know, in so many words, just like, fuck you, you know, we don't care. Kept giving me I don't know these bands. I guess there was a band called The Shining and another band called Shining.
Yeah, there's two bands. They're
okay,
black metal bands, you know.
Okay, so he said that, you know, those two worked it out, so I should work it out. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about them, you know.
Yeah, totally.
This is my band name, like, you know, this is not cool. And he was just like, whatever. And he basically ended with, you know, let's just see who the Coliseum is that people know, or something like that, you know, like, earn it. And I'm like, I fucking earned it, you know, it's here. And then you're just like, whatever. And every once in a while someone sends me a text of like, that other band Coliseum's record next to ours in Spotify, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, if that band potentially has the internet because they're on a label from Poland, and they certainly in the easiest bit of time could have searched Coliseum band on the internet and found us, but obviously just didn't give a fuck. So things like that are interesting to me, and you know, just another reason why people need to work harder to find new ideas, you know, new names and whatever. It's just really funny.
So you got this tour coming up in you were saying June and July. Is that the entire U.S. or, you know, what's the story with that?
No, it's pretty short. It's just a couple weeks. It's kind of like up to Chicago, over through Eastern Canada, you know, up to like the major East Coast cities, because, you know, we're a new band, and I didn't want to just sit around and wait. You know, that's not my way, and sit around and wait for something to happen. And I knew that if we played this fucking weekend of shows with Russian Circles and then put out a 7-inch and didn't play until someone asked us, then we'd probably never play. Nothing would ever happen. So we're just doing that just to go and have fun, and you know, yeah, just do it, just exist, you know.
Is it just you guys, or you out with somebody else, or, you know?
Yeah, it's just us. We talked to some other people, and there was a band that was gonna go with us, this band called Vowws, VOWWS,
mm-hmm.
and we were kind of working on it with them, and then they were like, oh, the Cult is gonna take us on tour this time, so we can't go. And I was like, hey, yeah, go for it, you know, like, can't fault you for that. So yeah, they're on tour with the Cult.
Good for them, man.
yeah, exactly.
And are the dates? Are they? Has this been announced? Like, are the dates like up for people to check out?
Yeah, we just put them up. We just released yesterday the video for Always Hell, and we have put the dates up with that. So we're just kind of starting to get them out. And there are a few more coming together. It starts June 27th in Chicago. We're in Brooklyn at St. Vitus on July 3rd. So yeah, it'll be small. You know, I'm sure the shows will be really small. It's just us and local bands, and you know, I have no idea what the awareness of us, the Fotocrime, is at this point, but it's got to be pretty small. But you know, I just want to play. You know how it is. It's like I don't, at this point, I don't really care if people are there. I mean, I just kind of want to get out there and do it.
Yeah, dude, unfortunately, I won't be here when you play in New York, man. I was like, that's kind of what I was angling towards. Like, when you guys when you play in Brooklyn, I was like, damn, I'm going to be out until like July 9th or so.
Okay.
And, but yeah, man, I'm really, my interest is like very, very high in checking you guys out live, because I really, cool. really love the 4 songs that I've heard so far. And,
great, thank you.
Yeah, I checked out the video as well. And
oh, right.
So who did the video for you?
A guy named Joe Watson who lives in England. He was in a band called Attack Vipers, and but I'm not sure if, you know, he's just one of those people that kind of becomes like a fixture in your music world. You know, it's like, I'm not really sure when I met him. I think it might have just been because he was a fan and got in touch. I'm not really sure, but he did 2 Coliseum videos. He did a video for the song "Love Under Will,"
Mm-hmm.
and then a video for "Detached," which was the first song from the first Coliseum record. He did a video for it on the reissue, and he's just a talented guy who's been really gracious to help me out here and there, and got in touch and said he wanted to do something else, and had this concept that really. We kind of bounced ideas back and forth, and he came up with this way of kind of having that split screen, like 2 television type screens on the video that kind of show this Cold War, mid-century fake American dream video, kind of with all the propaganda videos of people, hiding under their desks, and mushroom cloud, atomic bomb testing, which is a big part of what is inspiring me. Obviously, it inspired the song "Always Hell." That plus like the realities of now. So it was really great, like representation of the idea and vision for the song and for the band, which a lot of like stuff I'm influenced by is this kind of like 40s and 50s noir stuff, and also I really love like Douglas Sirk movies. I love the Technicolor melodramas. For some reason, I just like completely drawn in by them. I just love Technicolor films, from those days, like Hitchcock and all that stuff. So so this is kind of in that concept. Like I feel like that stuff, that era of film and novels and shit like that, like really ties in a lot to like the punk and post-punk and early electronic stuff that I am really influenced by musically. And so I'm kind of in this thing of like skipping these decades and kind of tying it all together conceptually. I mean, I don't know how much that comes through, but that's the big idea behind it.
Yeah, I could see that definitely. And just knowing like your material that you did in Coliseum, like you've always had sort of a I hesitate to use the word political, but things like culture and politics in like a broader sense have always been
right.
And decisions like having like maybe like a personal politics on a personal level have been sort of big topics that you wrote about in your songs. So is that it's the same sort of case with Fotocrime?
Not intentionally so, but I just think those things are so they're always so prevalent, and they kind of shake you up, and they just kind of come out because they're in your head. Always Hell, in terms of more contemporary things, when it was written, it was, of course, all the shit in Syria was going on, and the refugee crises there and everywhere else. Plus, of course, like the Obama administration, like endless drone strikes, and all that's going on, and then and also, the Obama administration deported, record numbers of illegal immigrants in the States. So all that was kind of, those were the contemporary things in my mind with Always Hell, mixed with that musical influence that kind of really comes from British and European post-punk and electronic, that in my mind is just black and white. It's like Wings of Desire, shit like that. Like I can't even imagine those things in color in a way, and then tied in with all the like the 40s and 50s stuff that really moves me. So it kind of comes out, but the idea is not to be a political band, because I think any time a tag is settled on me, I try to shake it off. So the rest of the material that I've written is, some of it is kind of political and, socially political, and a lot of it's personal. And I don't know. I try not to get too focused on one thing, but just kind of let it go wherever it goes. But sometimes it does kind of end up being, grand scope things. It's funny, like with this kind of music, I think that so much of it is kind of detached, like the bands that maybe I'm inspired by, but I just can't do that. Like I try, but I just have like an earnestness that it's kind of impossible for me to shake it off. And it's kind of one of those things that when you kind of assess yourself in your own art, you're kind of like, fuck, I wish I could be that guy who's just a little more detached in his subject matter and his delivery, but it just doesn't work for me. It's just not who I am.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I've played, I don't know, many shows with several of your bands, and like, I definitely know the deal with you, man. It's like you're not someone who you never come off as being detached. Like, there's always like a very personal, like your personality is always very front and center with everything, and people understand like kind of where you're coming from right away.
Yeah, and that's good, except there are times when you feel overexposed, and there are times with Coliseum where I felt like it was overly earnest and overly gracious in my attempt to be appreciative for the things we accomplished and for the people that supported us and for the bands we played with. And sometimes you just start to feel a little bit too exposed. I mean, especially like, honestly, every single Coliseum record, there are extremely personal, exposed things. And I'm trying to step back from that a little bit. And that's part of the concept with this is to let it be a little more of a separate vision and separate identity. But of course, there are things that are personal to me that will come through. I mean, that's just who I am.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, knowing you and that you're a big fan of films, the video medium just definitely seems something that would really work well with Fotocrime. So do you have plans to do more videos?
Not currently. That's another thing that I kind of learned from with Coliseum is that the last two Coliseum records, I wanted to do videos for every song.
Yeah.
And both of them I got kind of close. I mean, I think Sister Faith, I'm not sure, 5 or 6, and 5 or 6 at least on Anxiety's Kiss. But the more of that shit you do, the less people pay attention and the less impact it has. And as you know, there's so much that you do as an artist and musician that you put a lot of yourself into it and ask a lot of other people to do with you or for you for practically no money or no money at all. And then the reaction sometimes doesn't justify the effort put into it. Like, you know, we did a Coliseum remix record that I'm really proud of. I mean, there's like remixes from Justin Broderick, from Etsuo of Boris, Jay Robbins, Cold Cave, a bunch of people. And in that, I did a DVD that came for free with the record, and it's like has all the videos we ever did up to that point, like a public television kind of mini documentary episode on us, wow. All sorts of shit. Every bit of visual stuff that, you know, video stuff we'd done up to that point. And it's a really cool package. And I mean, I swear to God, I never got one fucking response from anybody. I mean, I think I even, like my bandmates, I think one of them was like, "Oh yeah, I watched that. It's cool." You know, and so you do that and you're like, well, what's the fucking point? You know, I spent a lot of money on it and a lot of effort, and it means something to me. And of course, that's the goal. But so with this, I'm not anxious to kind of overload people with stuff. I feel like it comes naturally when it comes, and you know, it's really hard for me to not go overboard. You know, it's like I want to make a video for every fucking song on the 7-inch, and I want to do all this stuff, but I also want the things that I do to have more impact, and sometimes I think less is a little more.
Yeah, and I follow you on that. You know,
yeah.
But I kind of tend to be the same way. Like, I would love to do videos for everything and have like a, you know, some sort of storyline that, you know, weaves its way through all the videos. But yeah, you're right. There's like, you have to balance out time and budget versus actual impact, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's a shitty place to be, but that's the reality of a small artist. And that's, you know, whenever I dream of being someone who has like more success in music, it's usually not about money. It's usually about being able to do more things. It's like, fuck, I wish that, you know, not that I necessarily want to work with this person, but, you know, I have like the Depeche Mode DVD and all the films they made with Anton Corbijn, and I'm like, man, that is great. That's a great long-term collaboration, like great imagery. Like those are the things you want to do, like a cooler stage show and bring bands on tour that you really love, and those kind of things. Like that ability as a larger artist to do whatever the fuck you want to do is so appealing, because, you know, you're always hindered by your time and your ability and your finances and what the audience size is, because sometimes it just doesn't warrant going to these extremes. But those are certainly dreams I have, you know.
Have you ever, like, you know, once again, I know how much you love film, and, you know, there's been several, you know, videos that you've done. You know, did the idea of ever getting into film ever interest you? Like, did you ever think about learning how to edit or any of those kinds of things?
You know, it does. I mean, it did. I did a couple of Coliseum videos, and my camera access was like pretty limited in this. So they're very raw and rough, but they're fun to do. And there are, well, there's a friend of mine who died a few years ago named Jason Noble, who was in Rodan and Shipping News and Rachel's. You know, he was like kind of the most inspirational person that I've ever known, and that certainly anyone who ever knew him, I think that you could easily say that about him, because he never stopped creating, and he made some short films himself that were like pretty avant-garde, you know, art films, and he and I that's where we really connected. Like, he had cancer, and when he was sick, I would come pick him up and take him to movies, and we'd go see anything from, I remember seeing Hannah together, which we loved, and but then we'd see shit like, we saw one of the Final Destination movies. You know, we just kind of see whatever was playing that day, and it was really fucking awesome. But he and I talked a lot about that stuff, and I think it was during that time that I kind of felt like, man, you know, what if I had gone into film? What if, as a kid, I'd really thought more about what goes into being a filmmaker is and what a director is. And I enjoyed film, but it wasn't more maybe to my like late teens and really into my 20s that I got really, really into it. And I don't have any regrets, but certainly sometimes you think, well, what if I just put all my time and energy into that versus music? And but those things are also generally require a lot more money a lot more people to be involved. Mm-hmm. And there's something about music where you can, like with this, you can create it yourself. You can really do it entirely yourself to a certain extent, or with one or two other people, and you don't need that much money to just make the music and play a show. You really don't need any fucking money, and besides having the equipment, and that is beautiful. And that's something that like is kind of, you know, music and maybe painting or whatever. You know, there's a few forms of art that you can just fucking do it with nothing else, and you can do it with no money, and you don't have to have financing and all that kind of shit. So, but yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. It's certainly a dream I've had at times, and you know, I was thinking when you asked me to do this, like, you know, you certainly have been a person that has been like influential in my life in terms of like things I've been open to in film and talking about things. Like, you know, I remember coming to your apartment and watching like Aftermath, you know, like 4 a.m., you know, or like, you know, shit like that. So it's certainly like hugely big in my life. And that's something I would hope with Fotocrime. I would love for like this stuff to be used in films and licensed in films, or if I ever had the opportunity to do soundtrack work or something like that, I would really love to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, soundtracks and scores, man. That's like the hardest job to get because it doesn't exist, man. Like, it's not like people just get that gig, you know. It's not like there's like, oh yeah, we need a guy to score a film and let's put an ad out, you know. It's like, no, you get tapped by somebody to do that work. You can't. It's like getting struck by lightning or something, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like you just end up doing that gig, you know. Speaking of films, man, did you see The Void?
I did, yeah.
And what's your reflections on that movie?
I think I'm maybe too critical. I thought it looked great. I loved the effects work, and I really liked the visuals of the ending. Like, I loved the big, illuminated triangle that's kind of, opening up to whatever this other reality dimension. And I thought that the guy, like the skinless guy, was really cool in that Hellraiser way. But I thought the story kind of lacked. Like, after it was over, I kind of thought, what was the story they were trying to tell with this, But I really loved the visuals, and I actually liked the full CGI scapes, whenever they would kind of cut to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought that looked really, really beautiful. But I did kind of wish there'd been a stronger story to tell.
I like the movie a lot, and the sort of, I guess, someone also who enjoyed Beyond the Black Rainbow, which almost has no story really.
Right,
that was
right.
like something that was kind of like secondary to delivering on certain aspects of the movie that I was looking forward to. And like, we all went out to see it at like a midnight showing, and it was like the coolest night I've had in a long time, was watching that movie.
That's great.
And it was at this place called the Nighthawk Cinema in Brooklyn, which is similar to like the Alamo Theater or whatever. That's down in Austin, where you can like, there's like a table and there's room and you can order food and drinks and all this sort of stuff. And so the environment was really cool, and like I was really stoked on it. Just the subject matter of like this kind of cosmic, H.P. Lovecraft, like a Lovecraftian vibe to it. And then the references to like all the other, 80s horror films, was just something I was like really, really stoked on. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it looked wonderful, for sure. Like, it's something that sometimes I wonder, especially with, I'm the same way with music for sure, but I sometimes wonder if I'm just too critical with film. I don't know. Sometimes after a while, like maybe if I saw that a few more times, I might just let it go and I'd love it. Like, I was talking with someone about Prometheus the other day, which is like, has terrible plot holes and the plot is kind of a fucking mess, but I love that movie. I watch it over and over because I just love how it looks, and I love being in that realm, even though it's not comparable to the original Alien, which is like a perfect film. So it's hard for me sometimes to let that go, and let expectations go as well.
Well, Alien itself, even compared to the sequels, that it's a standalone film, man. Like, there was never meant to be anything coming after that movie, I felt like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, like Aliens, the second film in that set of films was fun, but clearly not the same type of movie, you know what I mean? And, like Prometheus is even more like protracted away from that original vibe. You know what I mean? And I think that movie actually could have been just a film that had no tie-in to Alien. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah.
It could have just been about like panspermia or something like that, or some, other type of storyline. But yeah, the second time I saw Prometheus is when I really liked it. The first time I saw it in the theater, I was like, eh. But then I watched it again, and I was like, yeah, this is actually a cool story, even though there are like flaws or whatever. There's like two other horror films I saw recently that were really cool. There's a movie called The Black Coat's Daughter. Have you heard of that?
I have not seen it.
I recommend that one. And then there's another film. It's an IFC midnight film called A Dark Song, which is that came out of nowhere. It's like I didn't even hear about it, and then suddenly it existed, and I heard about it through word of mouth, and I watched it, and it was a great movie. Probably. I have another podcast that does all just horror films, and that is probably going to be one of my top picks for 2017 is this A Dark Song movie.
What is the story on it?
Well, that one, it has to do with this woman who her son is killed, and she contacts this someone involved in the occult and like ritual magic and all this sort of stuff to it's unclear initially what her intentions are. Once she's saying, well, I just want to, see my son. And then there's like, well, I want revenge. And then there's all these factors that play into that. And for a while, you don't really, you get the sense that there's just two maniacs like in a house somewhere in the English countryside or the Welsh countryside, just like completely unhinged. Like for most of the movie, you kind of feel that there's really nothing going on. And it's cool because, that's like a big topic these days is like what your mind actually manifests and the power of intention and that sort of thing. So I don't know, it was a really cool film. It was like really well done. The acting was like, excellent. And it was kind of like this slow build up, like a slow burn type of film. And it had this pretty, climactic ending. The ending actually is like somewhat kind of a flaw in my opinion because it gets a little too supernatural in some ways. But A Black Coat's Daughter, in my opinion, if talking about slow burns, like that movie, very totally atmospheric and like very slow moving, and just like a great movie, man. And some people didn't like it. It's like I've read a bunch of different reviews, and they've been very mixed on it. But I think that's another great film. But I appreciate something that's slow moving, like where you have to devote attention to it. And that's kind of like what The Black Coat's Daughter is. It's like a movie that you can't like look on your phone and, like things on Instagram while you're watching the movie. You actually have to pay attention, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of my favorite type of movie. I almost put like movies into categories, but I have like like Outback kind of movies.
Yeah, totally.
Like Walkabout and Wake and Fright, and I put Badlands. Badlands might be my favorite movie. Like that kind of just like person out or people out in kind of the middle of nowhere dealing with the darkness in themselves, really, really resonates with me. I saw the movie Raw recently. Did you see that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's ostensibly a French cannibal movie. But it was kind of less of a horror movie and more of a like coming of age horrors of leaving high school and going to college, but like very, very great art film, just looked great, had moments that were really Kubrickian, some kind of like long pull-in shots and but also involved cannibalism and finding a taste for human flesh. And it was a really good movie that was not what I expected and not really as advertised, but kind of better for it. It was great.
Yeah, I actually read a bunch of reviews about that film because I'm a subscriber to that Rue Morgue magazine, which is like one of my favorite. I like look forward to the day that I go down to my mailbox and that magazine shows up. It's like the greatest. It's like, okay, cool. Now I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm going to read this magazine. And they covered that film pretty well, and I'm like definitely interested in seeing it. Like it sounds like a really cool film.
Yeah, it was great. It was just like it was gorgeous and kind of like very, very very well planned and well executed movie, I thought.
So the 7 inches out, and what how can people just mail order it from you, or like what's the whole mechanism behind getting this to people?
I'm kind of keeping it relatively simple right now. It's you can order it from our site, which is fotocrime.com, FOTOCRIME, which our online store from our site is my site, surekiller.com. So it's on there. It's on Bandcamp, Fotocrime, and I just sent it out to some stores that I like around the country. Just like didn't even like not even looking for like money or invoices. I just was like, here's a few copies. We're going to be in your town on tour this time. Like, I go to this store. I know record stores for the most part because I travel a lot and tour a lot. So I'm just kind of trying to get it here and there, but not get all of the records that I press tied up in distribution and never getting paid for them and stuff like that. So, the Death Wish site ordered it, and so you can get it there. And that's kind of it right now. I mean, yeah, mainly from us and at shows, and just taking it from there. I mean, in a way, like a 7-inch, it's kind of like, it's almost like proof of concept, you know? It's like,
Sure.
just this exists, and I'm not. It's, you know, it's a fucking 7-inch, so you're not going to make a bunch of money on it, and that's not really the goal. The goal is to like share the existence of this band and these songs with people, and you know, obviously anybody that buys it helps me not completely lose my ass on it, you know. But yeah, so it'll be stores here and there, but you know, the best way is always certainly like directly from me.
Or go to one of these shows and pick one up, man, for sure.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah.
That probably is the best way of doing it, and you get to experience the band
sure.
live. And do you guys have, you know, have the songs premiered anywhere? As I know, the video I saw is on my sometime employer, Clairvoyant, has the video.
They did the video, and then the song that the video's for came out prior to that on impose.com. And then I don't think we'll do any like premieres for the B-side tracks. I know that like BBC Radio 1 is playing Plate Glass Eyes, which is one of the B-side songs this weekend. So that'll kind of be its like first public performance, you know, or whatever, like premiere. So yeah, I mean, from here we're just kind of, I don't know, just gonna hit the pavement when we can and hope that hope some kind souls take us out for some shows, you know, see what happens.
So now, is there any? You know, you mentioned that you had another body of work, basically another LP, and is there anything you can talk about regarding that, as far as like maybe down the line being a Fotocrime long playing record available to people, or is that something that you're still in the preliminary phases of?
Yeah, it's pretty far off. I mean, and it's kind of weird because, like I said, you do all this material, and that's the stuff that I think is the most fully formed and the most has the most identity, and is maybe the least derivative. So it's kind of interesting to have all this stuff done and no one's heard it, and I don't know that, like, I mean, it's certainly within the same realm as the stuff on the 7-inch, but there's some stuff that's a bit more pop. There's some stuff that has no guitars, like just bare, like, you know, maybe a little guitar texture, but it's like more entirely electronic, and not really in the way that Tectonic Shift, which is the last song on the 7-inch, it's not. It's kind of like dark and droning as that. There's like some more like, I don't know, you know, almost danceable kind of material. So I'll be interested to, you know, I'm excited to share that stuff with people, and the best way to really see that is like to go see us play, because that's most of the material we're playing, because that's most of what we have, and just looking for the right home for the record, you know. I mean, of course I have like idealized dreams of what it could do or where it could go, and we'll just see what happens, you know. And if the right thing doesn't come along, might just do it myself, you know, which is appealing as well. Just kind of hold things on your own is always kind of nice too. So we'll just see. But I'm really stoked on that material, and I think that the Always Hell 7-inch is like a really great starting point and like a great transition. If you liked Coliseum, you can probably follow by, you know, listening to this record, and then when the new stuff comes out, which is a bit farther on the path of what Fotocrime is doing, you know, it's a good way to kind of get you there. But you know, hopefully, obviously, it's reaching people that aren't only Coliseum fans. That's you're trying to do that as well. Find new people.
Oh yeah, totally, man. I think that even if you'd never heard Coliseum, that there's plenty there for people that maybe don't even get into like heavier music, would appreciate, you know, Fotocrime. I think that, you know, there's a lot there to get into, man, and it's like very much like you don't even have to say, oh yeah, X Coliseum. I know that stuff helps to sell the records, but it's like, it's not just only an extension of that. It's something, in my opinion, a brand new thing. And to me, someone who is familiar with all of your work, really, it seems like an extension. But if you'd never heard of Coliseum and you just happened upon Fotocrime good for you, and that's
Yeah.
even better. You know what I mean? I think that there's like, you don't have to have that background in Coliseum to appreciate the music on, Fotocrime.
Of course. I mean, it's, I think that the people that follow what I've done are going to follow me, the diehard fans. And when you're starting something new, part of you wants to just say like, as bands often do, like, I don't want members of and all this kind of stuff. But, especially when I'm doing it myself, I have to reach out to the people that have supported me. And I really appreciate that I do have whatever this, number of people are that follow my music and follow Coliseum and stick with me to something new. But ultimately, I'm not trying to do that. And like, even doing interviews, it's like, I know that I got to talk about Coliseum, and especially with you, because we have a lot of history together. It's something that's natural, but I'm not, I'm happy for the time that comes when that can just be what it was, and it stays, and I don't talk about it, every time. You're always happier to talk about like the current and the future, but sometimes you have to kind of sum up and wrap up the past as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just use Coliseum as like a reference point, really, just even in this little show here, because, it's conceivable that people that listen to this are fans of Coliseum, but for me personally, I mean, I've known you for 2 decades, and you're not just Ryan from Coliseum, you're Ryan from my friend from Louisville, and you're Ryan, the guy I've known for 20 years that writes music constantly and is always pushing himself forward. So it's like, for me, it's just a trope. All right, cool. The last band that you guys might have checked out by you is Coliseum. It's just a reference.
Yeah.
That's jumping off point, really.
For sure. I mean, that's you and I, like, we go back through many bands, and that's I mean, as I've told you before, like, that's something I appreciate about our friendship and history, is that a lot of people you're friends with, you kind of connect with them when you're in kind of like certain bands kind of end up in certain scenes or sects, and you maybe connect with somebody into that. Then when you do something that's slightly different in style, you sometimes maybe those people don't follow you, or you don't see them as much. I mean, obviously from years of touring, you and I could count on hundreds of people that we have toured with and probably thought we were going to be buds with forever.
Oh yeah.
And then when those bands end, you never fucking see that person again. And that was something that took me a long time to like get over. Sometimes I would kind of be like, well, fuck, I thought that guy was my pal, but it makes you really appreciate the people like you that transcend all that. And it's like a friendship first, and the music is something we do and support each other, whenever possible. But it's not like we're just trapped by these bands or these moments where like it's an overarching connection as friends.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's like, there's even people that I've played in bands with that disappear. Like, yeah. And you're like, man, what about all those like years we spent driving around the country in a van together? Now I never see you again, ever, even though we don't really live that far apart from each other, never run into each other. It's weird.
Right. It is truly weird.
Yeah. But anyway, Ryan, thanks for taking time out for this. And, I'm hoping to check you guys out someday soon. Unfortunately, it won't be on July 3rd here at St. Vitus in Brooklyn. But yeah, once again, if people want to look at these dates, they're up on the website.
Yeah, they're on Fotocrime.com, and then you go to any one of the other billions of outlets that people must have, and they're all there.
Cool. And I got the 7-inch in the mail today, and I'm probably going to give it a couple of spins tonight. And so yeah, man, thanks a lot for your time, man. I appreciate it, and good luck with everything moving forward.
Oh man, thank you. It was great to talk and catch up a bit.
Cool. And thanks for listening out there.
Atlantic power moves. Last night you saw foundation shake, and you slumbered like a fool. These times you always falter, these times you turn away. Douse the money with the gasoline as you're waiting for the grave. While we wait for the sky to fall, it's always hell, always hell. While we wait for the exile, it's always hell, always hell. While we wait for the bomb to drop, it's always hell, always hell. It's always, always. Watch an institution break, disassembled at the stroke of noon. Saw them burning on the stake, you believed it still untrue. At these times you always falter, at these times you turn away. Douse yourself in the gasoline as you're waiting for the grave. While we wait for the sky to fall, it's always hell, always hell. While we wait for the bomb to drop, it's always hell, always hell. Drugs. It's all gone wrong for us. Wait for the sky to fall, it's always hell, always hell. While we wait for the exile, it's always hell, always hell. With the demons, with the dogs. While we wait for the sky to fall,